Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Perform Happy podcast. My guest today is a superstar gymnast. She is a Canadian elite gymnast who was on three Olympic teams and was a vault finalist in all three of those. She competed for the University of Alabama, helped them win the 2021 SEC championships. And most excitingly, to me, or I think to many Canadians, in 2024 help Team Canada qualify to the team final. And Shallon Olsen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so excited to meet you. I've never met a Canadian gymnast I haven't liked. So here we okay, you made history as a three-time Olympian and you excel under pressure, obviously. I mean, has it always been that way for you, or is that a skill that you learned over time?
I think it's a skill that I learned over time. It's never something that you're naturally just born with. You really have to have a lot of practice and repetition. At least for me, I know heading into Paris, I had some of the kids at my gym, practice being loud and pretending like they were the audience. So I could get kind of a feel for what the arena was going to be like and how loud or quiet the audience was going to be. Usually, like, I prefer the gym to be quiet when I'm competing. I don't really like a ton of people cheering for me, but comparing like Rio to now, like Rio was super loud, and then I was very surprised to find out that Paris was extremely quiet. So that one took me for a loop. I was very caught off guard. I honestly just expected it to be super loud and noisy like Rio. So that was definitely something I was not expecting, but I was prepared for it because the Tokyo Games, we didn't really have an audience, so it was very quiet there as well.
Yeah, I remember that kind of people were not used to how quiet it would have been in Tokyo
Mhm.
and the lack of the audience. It's like you spend your years preparing and then you just really never know what's going to happen when you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so you specifically train for the things that you know might distract you,
Yeah.
which I think it's important. I've seen all kinds of crazy drills where people are like throwing pit foam while people are doing beam. And I mean, what's kind of the silliest or craziest thing that you guys did to get mentally ready for the Olympics?
Um, I remember like in university, we did like pressure sets where it was like we would kind of mock being super loud and like playing the music super loud to kind of replicate like an audience. And then we also did quiet sets as well. But the funny thing with the loud sets was we would just like bang objects, make so much noise, like scream. And I thought that was like super funny because it in reality it was super distracting because like we're all like standing around the beam huddled, but in reality the audience isn't going to be that close to the equipment, right? So I thought that was pretty funny. And being the one up on the balance beam when they're making all that noise is like really hard to not laugh because it's like your friends and your teammates trying to throw you off. And like that was the whole point of us doing the pressure sets is to, you know, be able to handle anything under pressure and any circumstance that is thrown our way, we're able to handle it.
Hmm. Now, when you think of pressure, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it somewhere in between? What's your relationship with pressure?
I think pressure is a privilege, honestly. Like if you don't have pressure, then you kind of don't really have like your goals. Like for me, like I set goals, right? And pressure is kind of keeping me accountable of those goals. And like I said, pressure is a privilege, so not everybody gets to do the sport that we love every day. So, being able to wear the maple leaf, being able to represent Canada on the biggest stage, like is a privilege for me, and I'm very blessed and I'm very honored. So, being able to, have that pressure of competing and getting the experience is something like that I hold very close to my heart. So that's why I say like pressure is a privilege because we don't have to, we get to, right? So that's something that I will always like hold very close to me.
Okay, now I'd love to rewind a bit to little Shallon, and did she come out, as a toddler, like, "Pressure is a privilege, bring it on," or would you kind of give us a little backstory on how you got to be the athlete that you are today?
I wouldn't say like that slogan. I didn't get it like straight from birth. I obviously, developed it over the years. I think that really started to, stay with me when I got to university. But like Shallon as a little gymnast, she just had like so much energy, couldn't like stay in one place. Like I had to be like tied down to the seat to eat my dinner and like all other meals. So I was a very active kid. We tried like many other sports like skating, we did rhythmic, swimming, and I don't know, gymnastics just clicked. Like it was something that was super fun and entertaining for me, and I really just couldn't get enough of it. And I remember like telling my parents like I'm so excited to go back and I wanted to learn more skills and go to more classes. So that was something that I was like super passionate about from a young age. But I didn't know that it was going to get me here to three Olympics. So I really am happy that I followed through with what I was passionate about from a young age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's such a gift to first, like some people are like, what is my passion? It's so amazing to find it right away and then also to be able to pursue it and then also to be able to have success. I mean, that really is the dream. Now, but you had some bumps along the road, like every single person does. And one I'd love to chat about is your growth spurt. So you grew 7 inches in your early teens. And I
Mhm.
know anyone out there who has been there, myself included, is like, okay, buckle up. Like, it's going to happen at some point. But you never know if it's going to hit lower levels, higher levels. So, where were you at in your training when you had that big growth spurt and how did it affect you?
I was like around like 13, 14, and I remember having to readjust a lot of my skills. It was very difficult transition period because I had such a huge growth spurt and I had to like retrain a lot of my skills. I remember I did lose a bunch of skills on bars too as well because of how tall I had grown and I kind of wasn't used to this new height that I had. So definitely like starting from scratch was difficult for me, but now, that I honestly haven't grown since being 14, I've stayed the same size. So now I say I'm used to it, but I remember when I was a teenager, that was something that I was struggling with, and I had to readjust a lot of skills to be able to keep up and kind of be at that same level that I was when I was younger. But and honestly, gymnastics is such a tough sport, so it's really hard to always be at the top of your game, especially with a growth spurt. So the growth spurt was definitely a readjustment period for me.
Well, that's a great way to describe it as a readjustment because I think gymnasts go through readjustments for a lot of different reasons.
Hmm.
Like they've got family changes, they have body changes, hormones, emotions, goal changes. I think a lot of that can lead to, what somebody might call a setback in gymnastics. But if you look at it as a readjustment, that you're just becoming the new version of yourself in that skill, that can be a little bit more forgiving than like, I lost my skills. And did you feel that way? Like, what's wrong with me? I lost my skills. What am I going to do? Did you get any pit of despair during that time?
Yeah, I definitely went through like a lot of frustration. At the time too, I definitely had like very harsh coaches, so also that didn't really help, but um, just staying on the same path and, being persistent and not giving up on myself were some of the key values that I held really close to me at that age. Now, like I'm an adult, I have more freedom. I'm able to communicate more openly with my coach, so we're on the same page now. And if I tell her something hurts, like she won't push me to do something, so she always has my best interest at heart, and I will always appreciate her for that.
Okay, so coaches, let's chat about coaches. Um, I mean, they play a huge role in anybody's big dream. And if you if you could design the perfect coach for you, like that would coach you when you were little, what do you think you What do you think would have set you on the best course?
I just think like as a kid, I felt a little bit like misunderstood. I feel like as though I had these Russian coaches who obviously wanted the best for me at a very young age, but you know, being a kid and so young, we're going through a lot of like transitional periods, like you said, puberty and growing up and, maturing, right? So I really wish I would have had like a little bit more, I guess, guidance and more support because like I didn't grow up in the best training environment. But, being an adult now, it's a lot more like I get to have a lot more say in things. So I just like wish that I was listened to and heard more because now as an adult, I'm able to, speak up and like have a voice. And I think that's really important now for this next generation is to really speak up when you're not comfortable with something and, be open and honest because as kids, sometimes when there's people in charge and you don't really feel like you can speak up, like I think that's something that should be taught at a young age is like if you don't like something, then just say something because you don't need to be afraid and it's okay to have a voice. And that's something that I've learned from, being a little gymnast to now a full grown adult. So that really helped.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know as a former gymnast myself, I didn't learn consent. I didn't know that I had a voice. I didn't know that I could say, I don't feel comfortable with this until I was in my 20s. Like, that's
Mhm.
just not okay, and I didn't because I grew up in this gymnastics culture where you just say, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir," and you do it. And so that's one of the things I'm really passionate about too is letting those little girls and boys have their voice because if it doesn't feel safe, say something. But then there's this misconception, or I don't know, there's this idea that then the kids will be soft and they won't be as good and they won't try as hard. So, what would you say to that?
I mean, honestly, I think the reason why I didn't speak up as a kid was because there was that fear of like getting in trouble from your coach. And I think, we shouldn't have to be afraid if something feels off or something feels wrong, We kind of all want our gymnastics careers to be fun and happy. And like, if we're not having fun and like being happy, like you may as well say that. It's not because I was put under a lot of pressure at a young age, right? So, um, it was a lot of like internalizing stuff because I was scared to speak up and scared that they would get mad at me. And now that I don't really have that anymore, I'm more able to express my feelings and, tell people if something's bothering me. So I think for the younger kids, really just, like to not be afraid. That would be my advice to, really just embrace it and it's your training environment that you're going to be in. So like I would just, make the best of it. And if something isn't right, then speak your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's this assumption that oh, it won't be as efficient and we're not going to be working as hard, but now you see, gymnasts like you, like Simone Biles, Ellie Black, these grown women doing gymnastics who are like, "Hold on a minute. Let's reconsider this." And actually, I do have an opinion on this. And I mean, and some people have great coaches, like Ellie's coach David. I've heard so many, I got to chat with him and he's like, tell me what you need, like that's, and you can be a world-class gymnast with a voice. So I think people like you are proving that look at you, you're still in the sport, you're still healthy, you're still succeeding, and you have a voice. So there you go, people. There's your proof that it can be possible. Yeah. So you helped the team qualify for the 2024 Olympic final. How did that group achievement feel compared to the individual successes along the way?
I feel like a lot of the girls on the team, like, we're all so close. We're basically all best friends. So, when we are able to experience something as big as that together, we've all poured our heart and souls into this sport. So, being able to achieve something so great together as a group like meant the world to us and making history for Canada. And I think the last time we made it that far in the team final was London 2012. I wasn't even a part of that team, but I remember talking to Ellie about it, and she's like, "That was so long ago." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was forever ago." But, it's truly amazing that she's able to be a part of, you know, making history back in London to still doing gymnastics now and making history again. So it really just speaks volumes with how much depth Canada has and how far we've come. And I'm super excited for the up and coming generation and, what Canada has to prove and to show off to the world.
And what do you think is setting Canada up for success now?
I think it's really just, being consistent with what we're doing, the training camps, working on artistry. We have judges come into these training camps also to give us corrections. So I think we're heading in the right direction and having a whole support staff, also like IST, sports psych, massage therapists. We have it all just to, be able to stay intact and be together as one. So excuse me, that is something that has definitely helped us achieve greatness and, continuing to be consistent in everything that we're doing, skill-wise, recovery, nutrition, all of that stuff is, I think, what's going to put us on top.
Yes, and that is another one of my big dreams is that there's a wellness program in every gym. I mean,
Hmm.
could you imagine if every single coach and every parent was educated on how to feed a kid and how to, how to support them and how to recuperate and I mean all of those things that have even sort of recently been part of the elite training
Hmm.
arena. I just think it's like it just is so amazing to see that continuing to grow. Now I'd love to chat with you about your mental training over the years. Now, everybody who's ever gotten on a 4-inch balance beam knows that gymnastics is mental as much as physical, if not more. So, what were some of the kind of more important mental training exercises or things that you did over the years that helped you to achieve your goals?
I would say visualization has helped me a lot throughout the years. I remember at competitions, I wouldn't like get to use the full touch warm up, and sometimes that did throw me off. And I think being like mentally prepared with your routines in your head is super important. Just because like I know warm up is super important, and like whether people know it or not, it's you know, a matter of us getting injured and performing the routines well. And then on the other hand, you could get hurt super badly if you don't warm up properly. So, a visualization has definitely been a big one for me in helping me uh, construct my routines and make sure that I'm safe. But I mean, I feel like I've had enough practice with visualization to the point where I'm confident in what I'm doing and I know I'm not going to get hurt. Whereas some other athletes are different, right? Some people need the full warm up. But I learned with me, like over the years, that I don't need a ton of warm up. It's a matter of just like, muscle memory and also just visualizing my routines in my head before I compete.
Now, just to stick with visualization for a minute, a lot of people, a lot of young athletes struggle with it. I found like a shocking amount can't really see what's going on or they can't control their image. Did you ever struggle with it or was it something that came easily to you?
I think it was kind of a learning process too. Like it wasn't something that I got off right at the beginning. And yeah, it took some time, but I definitely like honed in on it when I got older. Uh because I feel like as a kid I wasn't doing as difficult routines, so I could kind of warm up less and it would be fine. But when you're doing harder skills, you need to have more of a warm up and you need to get used to visualizing. But I feel like over the years, I've really mastered um, the visualization and also the muscle memory because I've done the skills so many times with all the repetition. So the muscle memory is definitely something that has really benefited me as an adult as well.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and building self-trust is so important, especially when you are a vaulter, and in the blink of an eye, you are doing so many incredible, complex things. And then, you know, you can't overthink it. It's actually one of the events I feel like you can start training self-trust at a younger age
Mhm.
because like you just literally cannot think or it's over. So how did you build the trust in your muscle memory in such, big, scary vaults?
You know, I think that just came with repetition and time. I've definitely gone through moments of like self-doubt, but over the years, I've really just mastered, the muscle memory. And I think that just comes with being in the sport for so long. You get practice, you like master the skills, and that's kind of what I think my coach has definitely, she fully trusts me now. Like we talk about trust all the time, and like if I trust myself and I go to her and I say like, "Oh, I can do this skill." She's like, "Okay, 100%. I trust you. I know you can do it." But if I go up to her and I ask, "Do you think I can do this?" She's like, "Nope. We're not doing it today and we're going to come back to this tomorrow." So, I think it really all has to just come from the athlete, and I know with me telling my coach that I feel ready to do something, then she trusts me. So, the self-trust kind of comes from both people, but mostly the gymnast because we're the ones doing the gymnastics, not them.
Mhm. And ultimately, I mean, everybody before they balk on a tumbling pass, they're standing in the corner doubting themselves. Like
Yeah.
that, it's not random. I always say it's not random. You already knew, like you felt that pit in your stomach and the thoughts were swirling. It wasn't random when you didn't go. Like you actually, if you're going or if you're not going. I mean, and then a parent from a mile away can see your shoulders up to your ears and be like, "Oh boy, she's not going to go." I mean, so why not just be honest about it and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, coach, I'm feeling off. Can I get a drill? Can I go just reinforce the muscle memory really fast before I try this again?" And
Mhm.
it could be that simple. It's like, let me just go do a couple drills. Okay, my brain remembers that I know how to do this. Thank you very much. Off we go. Versus, no, just do it, which is not
Yeah.
efficient.
So I grew up with like that mentality of like doing all of these skills from a young age with like really bad technique. So um, you know, moving out to North Van with my new coach now, she's been able to help me with drills, a lot of drills, and reinforcing proper technique because some of my skills from my old club have like kind of been ingrained, and some of the technique she just like absolutely hates. So she's trying really hard to help me like fix some of my technique on vault and other events as well. So I think that's just a matter of time before I'm fully being like adjusted back to the proper technique. So I had the Russian coaches who were very adamant on me doing all of these difficult skills, but with very, very bad technique. So now, as I'm older, I'm able to focus more on the small details and be able to still make it look pretty and do it the correct way instead of the incorrect way.
Mhm. Well, it's just another readjustment. So, three-time Olympian is readjusting her skills and
Yeah.
learning new drills and finding better ways to do things. So, I think what I really keep hearing is that it's not complicated to be an extremely powerful gymnast. It's not complicated at all. It's time and patience and repetition. And if you're consistent and you put in the work, you can essentially do anything.
Hmm.
But it's a lot of people don't give it that time and they don't give it that patience and they make up stories about not being good enough because things aren't working out instead of just like, okay, well, just wait till the growth slows down. Just wait till the drills kick in. Wait until the trust is built.
Hmm.
But it's hard because what 13-year-old wants to like wait to be
Yeah.
excellent?
Yeah. I think that's a good point that you mentioned, like some kids not wanting to focus on drills because I am a little bit stubborn sometimes with drills. I took like 3 months off after the games just to rest my body and recover. And I started training again, maybe like, I don't even know. Well, obviously it was last year, but I started training again and I was trying to do a skill on bars the other day and I realized like, oh my God, I'm like kind of having a panic attack on this one skill that I did pretty much every day. And I told my coach, like, I lost it. My body, like, I don't trust myself. My body doesn't like want to do the skill. And she's like, that's okay. Like, we'll just do basics on the bar and, practice doing some turns. And before you know it, like, you'll get it back and it'll come back to you. And so I'm like really trying hard to trust her. And the other day I was like doing the skill and then slowly starting to get it back. And so I'm really happy that I didn't give up. And I was a little scared it was a mental block because I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not getting over the bar. And she's just like, it's okay. Like, we can take it slow. We don't have to have a bar routine right now, this instant. So I definitely have some time to get better and work on technique. And yeah, it's just a process. Like slow and steady wins the race, right? So I'm not trying to rush anything, but drills for me right now are important because I'm really trying to fix my technique and make it look a lot more polished.
Well, and that's a common story that I hear is when you start changing technique, you take an automatic skill and one that you do not have to think about, and you turn it into something you have to think about. So you go from automatic mind into active thinking, which can be sort of unnerving because your brain's like, no, 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 we don't think about this. What we just do it. and and then it can start to feel
Yeah.
like, well, I kind of forgot how to do it because I can't think of what to do, and it's like you when you go from automatic to active again, it can be tricky, and I
Hmm.
think it's just part of it's one of those things that you just have to go back into learning mode again and be really
Yeah.
humble about this. I'm just gonna have to learn, like, okay, what exactly do I do with my body in that 1 millisecond of that skill?
Hmm.
And a lot of people are like, "I don't know, I just go." And so sometimes I'll even have people draw out this is the whole skill in stick figures and like teeny itty bitty stick figures so they can see because they're like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Where's your ponytail pointing in that one? Where's your head? What are your arms doing?" Because they sort of have zoomed past that and you have to go back in and make friends with each little stick figure again through doing drills. And then once it all comes together, and then you can automate it. It's like, "Oh, okay, I made it." But sometimes it takes 6 months to do that
Yeah.
process, and it can
Yeah.
be frustrating.
Yeah. At least for me, I just feel like gymnastics is it's all about feeling. Like if you feel like comfortable doing the skill, then it's going to happen, right? And for me, losing this skill was I felt afraid to progress and like finish the skill fully because my body didn't feel comfortable and I didn't feel comfortable. And I don't want to say like I didn't trust myself, but I'm not going to push myself to do that extra step of the skill if my body's telling me no and I'm trying to do it, but like I said, I'm not on any timeline right now, so I'm really just trying to focus on the basics and really master that before I just decide to chuck something because a lot of the time in the past I would just chuck skills with no proper technique and now I'm really just trying to focus on doing the skill correctly so that it looks polished when I go to compete it.
Yeah, and that's where that patience comes from, and I think someone with experience in the sport, you can go, I don't have to have this today." You've
Mhm.
got more of a you can zoom out on the whole process and go, "This is a worthwhile slowdown that's gonna make me better," whereas somebody else who's like, "I have a meet in 3 weeks and I just have to chuck it."
Yeah.
Okay, but what if you had another 10 years of gymnastics? Would you consider it differently and go, "Well, what if I spent the time now and I didn't nail that meet or I didn't compete that event and I had a polished, consistent, really dependable skill? Would it be worth this little sacrifice now?" And it doesn't feel like it when you're going like, it's level 7, the 3rd meet, and it has to be good, and I gotta qualify, but when you can sort of back out and go, "Well, what if I slow down here and do it right?" Then I can go farther. Same with injury recovery. If you
Mhm.
rush an injury, you're going to have more trouble down the road than if you just slow down and trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of injuries, I mean, we all have them. Did you have any speed bumps in that department along the way?
I think I was having a lot of issues with my ankles going into Paris. I was doing like a lot of vaults that were under rotated, so my ankles would get jammed quite frequently. Right now I'm like trying to practice without tape because I the only event that I don't tape for is balance beam, and I have to like take all the tape off and then put it back on, and it's just time-wise really, really like terrible. So I'm trying to practice without it, but I think for competition I will stick with the tape because it is kind of like a comfort thing for me. So if I don't have it, I feel like I might panic a little bit.
Mm.
And also when I like put the competition aspect into perspective, like we're landing on like super hard mats, whereas like in training, you can like add an extra mat and it'll be like a lot softer. Whereas in competition, we're landing on all these hard mats, so the impact is a lot more on my joints. So the tape is really beneficial for me, especially in competition, but my coach keeps telling everyone, she's like, yeah, she's training without tape. And I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm not going to use it in comp because my joints are still going to need that extra support when I'm landing. So, therefore, I think I'm too lazy to tape during practice, but I will make it a priority in competition, I promise.
Yeah, and also it eliminates a distraction because if
Mhm,
you're worried about your ankles when you're warming up for vault, you're not going to be able to be in the zone as much. If you can just kind of
mhm,
check that off and be like, ankles are safe, check. Okay, I did my visualization, check. I did my warm up. Okay, good. It's like planning your pre-meet routine is so important because it just eliminates that one more decision you have to make later. Like if you just know this is what I eat, this is where I go, this is how much time I need to get ready, then you're not running around being like, did I get the right thing? Am I doing this? Should I do this? Should I tape? Should I not? It just saves you
mhm,
all those decisions. So you can just like lock in and do what you know how to do. Do you have
mhm.
any kind of routine that has helped you, especially in those kind of big moments?
I think just like maintaining a consistent schedule for me, like going to bed at the right time, eating breakfast, having my morning coffee, all super important things for me to, have energy and fuel myself for the comp. Um, the only time I really like failed on, doing that was for Olympic trials because I was like so nervous. Um, like so nervous to the point where like I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep properly. So I'm still trying to find a way to calm my nerves when I have like one of the most important meets of my life the next day. But I think for lower level competitions, I'm usually pretty chill, pretty neutral. So I don't know. I'm still learning as I go. So definitely trying to figure out if I go for another Olympics and Olympic trials comes up, how I'm going to handle, you know, the stress and, the anxiety when it comes to being put under that insane amount of pressure. And I think the thing for me was when I was competing at trials, I put this insurmountable pressure on myself that I had to do extremely well. And then when it didn't go my way, I was obviously super disappointed. But luckily for me, I just had to hit vault, even though all around failed me. But I was confident with the vault. So that's basically what helped me get put on the team for Olympics. If I hadn't hit the vault, then maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but I'm just happy and blessed that that was the one thing that went right for me at that day.
Okay, now in hindsight, looking back at your Olympic trials, if you could rewind and redo like the week before, the night before, the day of, and change things that would set you up for success, what would you do differently?
I think I would probably maybe like try to meditate, maybe to like calm my nerves, because like I had never in my whole gymnastics career been like that nervous. So that was really odd for me because most of the time for competition, I'm excited, right? Like I'm excited to go there. I'm excited to show my routines. But that was very like different for me and out of the ordinary. So I wasn't expecting that at all, like to the point where I couldn't eat, I couldn't hold food down. It was almost like I was sick, but I wasn't. I was just extremely nervous because I had put this crazy amount of pressure on myself that I had to hit every routine. So I think maybe to calm my nerves, I would probably meditate, maybe do some yoga, some deep breathing, just to kind of become more relaxed. I think I was too stressed. I had a lot of anxiety, and that's definitely something that I think threw me off.
Well, and I always talk with people about it being a lot easier to prevent nerves than to stop them once they've started. Because like once your tears are falling, you can't just turn off the faucet. Once the nerves are there or the anger, those big feelings. So the best way is to actually prevent it by eliminating a fear of failure. Because that's the thing that like really creates like what if I fail tends to be what sends us into that big fight or flight reaction. So I
Mhm.
wonder if you've had meets in the past where you were so excited and, what was your mindset going into those that you could potentially adopt, going into LA?
Oh gosh. Um, I think like for those other competitions, I didn't see it as like Olympic trials. It was just like any other competition to me. And didn't have that like label on it where I was like stressing myself out. But because it was Olympic trials, it was like I have to hit everything in order to be able to make it and do good. Whereas like if I fell on one event at Elite Canada or Canadian Championships, I wouldn't be super upset. But again, all of these like competitions that we have in Canada, like Elite Canada and Canadians, they do contribute to us being selected for international competitions. So there is still that pressure there. But like if I didn't get selected for something because I competed poorly at those competitions, I wouldn't be super upset. But because trials was leading up to Olympics, that's I think something that threw me off because that was something that I really wanted for myself. And I'm not saying like I didn't want, to go to other international competitions from Canadians and elite. It's just I put Olympics more as like a priority than those other competitions.
Yeah, and I think even on like the micro level, every single athlete can relate to this of I have to do perfect because I want to qualify for state. I have
Hmm.
to do perfect because it's the week before state. It's like I hear so much of this. And then how did your practice week go? Terrible. How was your meet? Bad. It's like, okay, so we can then look at that and go, well, that strategy of this is important, so I have to be perfect. We can wipe that off the whiteboard of strategies to try and be like, we tried that one. That one didn't work. Okay, good. What else shall we try? And there's okay, the meets where I was like, "It's fine. It's gymnastics. I'm gonna go and do 4 routines." You kill it. So, like, well, let's do that one then, even if it's the Olympic trials, that
Mm,
if I go in and I'm like, "Okay, what did I do that my best meet? What was my mindset going in?" It's like, "I'm here to have fun. I love this sport. Let's go have a good time." So
mhm,
we want to be able to do that, whether it's you're qualifying for state or nationals, or it's the Olympic trials, or it's the Olympics, or you're, like no matter what it is, we all have those best meets that you just sort of like just duplicate that same mindset of practice, of like it's just another 4 routines. So
mhm.
I don't know if it's easy for me to say because I'm not out there, next to Ellie doing like with all that pressure. I'm just the one in the stands being like, little girl's dreams are coming true. This is
Oh.
the coolest day ever. you know? But I love that you're able to share that, I know so many kids out there are like, oh, I do the same thing and no, it totally doesn't work. So maybe we'll try a different strategy next time.
Mhm.
Okay, so I can't end our chat without asking about comparison. So you have competed against Simone Biles in Olympic vault finals 3 times now.
Yeah.
So I know everybody struggles to compare themselves to others and feel like good enough or like, do I deserve to be here? Or, so I'm curious when you are literally going up against the goat on vault. Do you have any of that going on?
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure she saw me face plant during the warm up. So that was great. Yeah, because now I was talking to her about how we now have the the touch warm up. And she's like, "Yeah, that's so great. Like we really need it." And basically they need to prioritize the athletes over TV time. And she was like 100% agreeing with me because, like I said, warm up is super important. So we're throwing like some of the hardest skills in the world, and you're asking us to compete with no warm up. Like that's like a literal death sentence right there. So I was happy that they finally made the change leading up to this games, and I'm hoping that they continue to do that because it's super important. And if we don't have the proper warm up, like we could break something or we could truly seriously injure ourselves. And I think it was selfish of them in the past to not give us our warm up time, but I'm happy we're taking steps in the right direction to promote good change. And it's what we need because if we don't do that, like I said, there could be serious issues and mistakes happen, which we don't like. But yeah, competing against the GOAT is obviously nerve-wracking, but I feel like she's super confident in what she does and she trusts herself. So I really try hard to not compare myself to her because she's kind of in a different league than everybody else. So I think it's just an honor to be competing on the same stage as her at the biggest competition of my life. So
Yeah, not a small moment, I imagine. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so cool. Thank you for inviting us into that memory with you. Well, we are going to be rooting for you for sure. Following along on social media. Hopefully, you'll keep us posted on your gymnastics journey. Shallon Olsen, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for spending time with me.
Thank you so much for having me.